Good afternoon, I'm Chris Nachkate. Thank you for joining us. The Canadian Senate has unanimously supported a bill to end forced sterilization of Indigenous women in this country. This comes as numerous class action lawsuits for forced sterilization are going through the courts, with victims from numerous provinces and territories seeking compensation. Last week, victims and advocates presented to the Senate where private members' bill S-250 passed third reading. The bill will tighten existing legislation and make forced and coerced sterilization an indictable offense with a sentence of up to 14 years in prison. According to Senator Yvonne Boyer, who has spearheaded the bill, more than 12,000 women, mostly Indigenous, were sterilized in the past 50 years. Victims who spoke to the Senate called for accountability and said forced and coerced sterilization against them is an act of genocide. The bill will now go to the House of Commons, with victims hoping it will be passed before the upcoming election.
Thank you, Chair Francis.
The Union of BC Indian Chiefs, or UBCIC, says Canada continues to discriminate against First Nations women and children on the basis of sex, race, and family status. It blames the Indian Act, saying that for 148 years, it was used as an effective tool of forced assimilation. UBCIC and Heiltsuk Chief Councillor Marilyn Slett, along with a number of Indigenous women's groups, traveled to Geneva, Switzerland this past weekend, where they presented their research on the matter to the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. The UBCIC says between 1876 and 1985, the Indian Act legally defined thousands of First Nations women and their children as non-Indian if the women were married non-First Nations men. Yet First Nations men could pass status to non-First Nations wives and their children. The groups call it a sexist legislative scheme that has brought racism, misogyny, and violence to Indigenous women for generations, and call it the root cause to the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls crisis in Canada. The group wants Canada to end sex discrimination and repeal the rules regarding transmission of Indian status. They also want compensation and restored membership for all victims. At the beginning of the month, the Manitoba government amended the Child and Family Services Act. The new amendments aim to keep children with their family and communities and to ensure parents get the support they need. On Friday, Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine unveiled the province's plan to transform the child welfare system. APTN Sarah Bettens has more.
Amendment that Cynthia Broadfoot believes would have changed her family's life.
Had I had that, our family would have had like a lot of support and input, and they may have only been in the system a year or two. Had I had what we have now.
On October 1st, Manitoba's Child and Family Services Act was officially amended to introduce 4 new agreement types: family support, and customary kinship and voluntary care. In a press conference on Friday, the Manitoba government announced the amendments. Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine said the hope is fewer children in care and more parents playing an active role in their lives.
We are empowering family members, Indigenous nations, community, and kin, while ensuring the child welfare system works with parents who need additional support, better meeting the needs of both Manitoba children and families.
While kinship care involves placing children with family or close kin, customary care focuses on keeping children in their culture and community. Voluntary care allows parents to temporarily place their children under CFS care. A family support agreement involves an agency connecting families to resources and financial assistance. Poplar River Chief Vera Mitchell supports the amendments. At the same time, she said First Nations must be given full jurisdiction over child welfare matters.
People always reference Indigenous child welfare agencies. They're not. They belong to the province. I want to clarify that all the announcements that are made are things that we've always done with our families. And it's not something new, like customary care is not something new, and supports for families is nothing new. The only thing that's attached to it is funding to help to facilitate those resources.
In May, Manitoba signed a declaration vowing to transfer child welfare jurisdiction to First Nations. The province has also dedicated approximately $10 million to Indigenous agencies to support customary and kinship care. Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A social media video has brought forward controversial comments made by a BC Conservative candidate, Dallas Brody. Those comments were about being Indigenous and living homeless in Vancouver's East End. And now there are calls for an apology. CTV's Michelle Bernoro reports.
Vancouver's downtown east side, a place of despair, addiction and mental illness, became the focus of controversial comments at an all-candidates meeting Thursday.
There was audible gasps or moans. You could tell there were people in the audience who were uncomfortable with the answer.
The answer he's talking about came from Dallas Brody, who is running with the Conservatives in Vancouver-Quilchena. In trying to clarify previous comments, she said that when people say they want to be First Nations and be autonomous, that comes with responsibility.
When a large percentage of your people are on the downtown east side, it's important that you come and take responsibility for that piece as well. It's not okay to leave your people down there.
My reaction to that was one of disbelief for somebody that wants to be a leader in this province.
I find the comment to be absolutely disgusting, ignorant, and profoundly stupid.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillips says people from all walks of life and ethnicities have ended up on the downtown east side.
There's people down there that suffer from the trauma of residential schools and terrible situations. Our collective efforts to change the situation on the downtown east side, all levels of government bear responsibility.
When asked about Brody's remarks, Conservative leader John Rustad said he hadn't heard them, but that
we have worked with elders and community leaders in the First Nation communities across this province, had a number of conversations about it, about making sure that we have treatment and recovery available within First Nations.
These are comments that candidates are saying, right? But it reflects a value system. It reflects a core set of beliefs that we're seeing from John Rustad and his candidates.
Brody did not respond to a CTV request for an interview. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. An Anishinaabe artist is creating more beautiful woodland-style art, while at the same time hoping to inspire the next generation. That story when we come back in about 3 minutes. Stick around. Welcome back. An Anishinaabe artist is bringing together her love for woodland-style art and teaching to inspire others to explore their Indigenous heritage. Lucia LaFord is also following in the footsteps of her father, who is well known in the world of woodland art. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
This mural is one of several public art displays in the city of Sault Ste. Marie designed by local artist Lucia LaFord. For the next several weeks, she will be walking this group of students from St. Mary's High School through the process of creating their own.
For me, the mural, specifically from an Indigenous context, is not just art for art's sake, but art for teaching and learning and growing. And also as an Indigenous artist, I want to take up space the way that we haven't been able to take up space before.
LaFord is the daughter of renowned woodland-style artist John LaFord, who passed away in 2021.
Just before he passed, we were teaching together at the university, and he passed right in the middle of the course, and you just have this moment of, oh my gosh, the person that I learned everything from is gone. How am I going to continue teaching? And I never thought about that before, and then I realized, like, my father's still with me, and I believe in the Anishinaabeg worldview that, you know, he's there with our ancestors, and so I just keep teaching because I know that he loved teaching and he instilled that love of sharing everything that we love. with everybody else.
LaFord will be taking a break to work on another mural project at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Southern Ontario.
For this one, I'll be doing something very similar, but going in, doing workshops on woodland style art, which also include cultural teaching. So I can't teach about woodland style art if I don't teach about who we are as Anishinaabe and as Indigenous people. So, you know, we'll be drumming, we'll be smudging, we'll be talking about the medicines, we'll be talking about, you know, intergenerational healing, intergenerational trauma, because you have to talk about all those things. And while we're doing all that, we're going to be painting a mural as well.
Asked why she chose to do a mural project at a prison, LaFord says she's had her own struggles.
I've dealt with my own challenges of addiction, mental health, and other issues in my life. And so I know that being Indigenous means that we go through trauma, and I know that a lot of those women and people that are in there have gone through trauma, and that there's a reason why there's a more amount of us as Indigenous people in correctional facilities, and we're overrepresented in so many other things.
Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
For the 11th year, the YMCA Alberta North held its YEG Youth Connect. The day-long event gives an opportunity for youth from 13 to 29 who are at risk, a chance to connect with services that offers help. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
On Thursday, the YMCA's Boyle Street Plaza in downtown Edmonton had 35 organizations on hand, from healthcare and housing options, potential employment opportunities, and much more for unhoused or at-risk youth. Andrea Koken is the youth program manager at the YMCA of Northern Alberta. She says today is for putting multiple resources in one place to make it easier for people needing services.
For a lot of these youth, this is the first time that they will connect with one or more resources at one time. So we just want to provide that free, welcoming environment for them to not be too hesitant.
She says people have access to cultural programming and volunteer opportunities.
We also have some opportunities for free clothing for the winter months coming up as well, some winter gear. And then we have a catered meal provided by Second Chef. And then we have some snacks, performers, cultural supports. We have a few elders that will be smudging as well, and free haircuts.
Zoe Rudick is a youth engagement worker at the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society.
We're a part of the housing team at Bent Arrow, which provides housing options to high-risk Indigenous youth and adults as well. So we're also offering pre-screens for any youth that need to get in the program.
A popular location is the free clothing section. Sarah Kucheroy is 17 and looking for something stylish and warm to wear. She says today's Youth Connect will help her and others.
It would most definitely help people more, because it's coming to be winter soon, and it's really hard to see homeless people on the streets without clothes or warm places to stay.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
And here is the results of our web poll questions. Last week we asked, do you believe the Red Dress Alert program will help reduce the number of MMIWG2S plus cases? A majority said they were unsure at 41%, while 31% voted yes, and the rest said no at 28%. Next we asked, how much confidence do you have in Canada's criminal justice system? Only 2% said they had high confidence in the criminal justice system, while 23% had moderate confidence, but the majority had low to no confidence at 42% and 33%. And lastly, we asked, how much trust do you have in the federal government's handling of environmental issues affecting Indigenous communities? Just 3% said they had high trust, while 12% had moderate trust, while the rest had low trust at 42% and no trust at 43%. Thank you all for taking the time to answer our questions. We have a new set of questions on our website at www.aptnnews.ca. TikTok Canada wants to help amplify Indigenous voices. That story when we return. Stay with us. Starting on the east, St. John's 13, Charlottetown 10. Cartwright 3, La Grande River 4. Gaspé 8, Quebec City 8 as well. London 6, Ottawa 8. Timmins 24, Sioux Lookout 0. God's Lake 2, Puckatawagan 5. 2 in Winnipeg, Princess Harbor 3. Regina 5, Saskatoon 7. 5 in La Ronge, 6 in Buffalo Narrows. High Level 12, Peace River 13. 15 in Calgary, Edmonton 14. 16 in Penticton, Campbell River 15. Partly cloudy in Fort Nelson at 9, Smithers 8. Whitehorse 6, Mayo 3. Wrigley 2. Deline 0. Baker Lake -1, Chesterfield +1. And Clyde River 2 and Arctic Bay -2. TikTok Canada is looking to amplify Indigenous voices and communities with its Indigenous Accelerator program. Now in its 4th year, it's expanding the number of participants who can take part by 650%. Returning as a program advisor is Sherry McKay, an Anishinaabe creator from Treaty 1 territory. Here's that interview with Savannah Kelly.
Sherry, thank you for joining us. So to start off, can you explain what the TikTok Accelerator program is for Indigenous creators and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Accelerator program for Indigenous content creators, it's a 6-week part-time online free program for Indigenous content creators at all levels to be able to come in and kind of brush up on some skills. Everyone's going to be at different levels, so it's not, geared to just one type of level. So it doesn't matter how many followers or anything like that, how big your account is. We're going to try and adapt everything to everyone at all different levels, and Indigenous content creators, small businesses, artisans, comedians. So it's covering like a wide scope of content creators, and it's basically going to help you brush up on some skills or learn some new skills that you can utilize to hopefully have a successful career in the digital space.
Interesting. And typically there's 40 participants that are selected for the program, but this year there'll be 300. What does that increase say to you about the program?
Well, it says to me that they seen a demand. The past few years, the application submissions have grown quite a bit. So to turn away so many content creators that wanted to participate in the program, it was this moment of like, oh my gosh, like there's so many people that want to be a part of this, but then it was saddening to have to say no to so many people. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it jumped up that much, it just it feels good that to me that TikTok Canada and the National Screen Institute are seeing that demand in the people and the content creators. And so it's a little scary because 300 of anything can be scary, right? But I'm super excited for it.
Interesting. And the fact that it jumped from 40 participants to 300 shows that you guys are saying there is a demand and they're not doing half measures like, oh, we'll double it. Like this is a 650% jump, which is wild to see.
Yeah.
And so how powerful would you say the platform of TikTok is when it comes to amplifying Indigenous voices?
I think it's extremely important. Visibility and representation in Indigenous people and the things that we share in terms of storytelling, comedy, culture. For a lot of us, maybe growing up, we didn't have access to some of those things. So I myself learned a lot of things about who I am as an Indigenous person. And I think that when we talk about those things, we become reserved and wanting to hold some things back for fear of, exploitation or people taking that information and doing something with it. So we talk about, protecting yourself on the internet and in those spaces. But I think it's really important because we're finally getting to tell our own stories. And it's like for us, by us.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And this is the 4th year for the Accelerator program. Can you think of some of the success stories that have come from it?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I'm not only a content creator, but I'm a watcher, and I know that sounds creepy. But I watch, I've watched how native TikTok has grown so much, and every day there's like new native content creators that I'm like, where did this person come from? And I'm going through their stuff and following them. And so I think that I think it's super important that we have this space, and it builds a community. But I've seen so many success stories where people's accounts have blown up. They've got verified, they're doing brand deals, they're doing like really cool stuff, and there's other opportunities even outside of TikTok because of your TikTok, and that's what's been happening with me.
Right on. And lastly, so for the program, people have until October 18th to apply. How can they do that, and what can they expect during its 6-week run?
So I'm just like, what to expect. So the application process is on the National Screen Institute website. And I'm not too sure the questions that they ask. And I always tell people this because I'm not really involved in like the choosing of the participants or anything like that. I wanted to withdraw myself because I could probably be kind of biased. Like, ooh, there's some of my favorite creators, so I'm not a part of that. But they can find the application on the website of the National Screen Institute. And some of the things that they could look forward to learning is learning about monetization, learning how to protect yourself in the social media world, and mental health and well-being is super important. And then the interface in the app itself, because the app is always evolving and changing, and there's always these really cool, neat features that are, brand new, and I'm like, what the heck is this now? And I'm looking at it. So we go through stuff like that, and they're not just from like content creators like myself who are using the app, but like leaders in the industry, in the TikTok industry in TikTok Canada, which is really neat because we don't have that opportunity, as regular content creators, to have those professionals come in and talk to us about what it is that we're doing on the app and how to use it.
Well, Sherry, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time speaking with us today, and looking forward to seeing how the program goes this time around.
Awesome, me too, thanks.
Thank you, Savannah and Sherry. And that's your midday newscast for this Tuesday, October 15th. From everyone at APTN National News, hi, miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again in a few hours for your evening national newscast. Ekse.